Start with a flea flicker to open up the night. And he connects with Galladay.
Sup, everyone? It's the Flea Flicker with Joey D and Timmy B. This is our Week 15 recap show. Joey D, man, we missed you over the weekend, but how was your weekend? How are you doing right now?
Weekend was great. Saw some family. Got to get a little bit early Christmas celebration going. So that was important. Sorry to all of our loyal listeners and fans. But it was a good time, and football. It was a fun Sunday. Kind of a couple crazy games in there that I'm sure messed up a lot of people's fantasies. But it was a fun weekend of football. We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, definitely a fun weekend for fantasy for some people. Unlike myself, I lost all my fantasy semifinals, but also people in eliminator pools or even just gambling. There were a lot of big upsets, and Joe, I want to kick it off to you first. Any big takeaways from the Thursday night game with the Chargers winning in overtime, the Bills dominating the Broncos Saturday night to clinch the AFC East, or the Packers, getting ahead early and then coasting to win against the Panthers? Any big takeaways from those three games?
Yeah, with the Chargers, I was against the Raiders, yeah. The Derek Carr injury is huge. The Raiders are fighting for a playoff spot right now, and he's been limited at practice this week, so it could be Mariota again. He did some good things, being kind of thrust into action there. Darren Waller had a really big day. But that Raiders defense was just kind of decimated in terms of a bunch of COVID contact traces. I wish I had picked the Chargers in that game because, I had Justin Herbert, and going into it, I felt good about him and, the way that they were going to do against the Raiders, and then, the Derek Carr injury. So what are you going to do there? That's my big takeaway there. Just, Raiders even more concerning with the playoff berth on the line right now. It's tough L that they had there, really couldn't afford to lose that one. Who's the second one? The Broncos and who?
Broncos and Bills. Bills win by about 30 points, win the AFC East. Yeah, we thought Vic Fangio would keep it close, but the Bills would win. Stephon Diggs, man, I would throw him in the hat for Offensive Player of the Year, or definitely not MVP. That always goes to a quarterback. But, we got to give him some recognition with the season he's having.
Yeah, I think he leads the list and yards right now. What a story going from Minnesota and Kirk Cousins to Buffalo. Another very cold city with some questions at quarterback, but it's crazy to see how much Josh Allen has elevated his game. How much adding a playmaker like Stephon Diggs has done for him in that offense. I feel like right now this Buffalo team is the only team that could truly contend with Kansas City potentially. Maybe Indianapolis, maybe Tennessee, maybe, but right now I feel like, it's looking like a, just kind of a headlong Buffalo versus Kansas City in the AFC Championship. That's the way it shapes up.
Yeah, and it's nice to see, you mentioned it with Josh Allen developing in his third year after they got him a true number one wide receiver. We've seen Kyler Murray in his first year as a starter, second year, first full, off season. I don't want to say full off season with everything that's happened. So hopefully some of these other young teams, like, the Ravens, hint, get a number one wide receiver for Lamar Jackson, maybe Allen Robinson, maybe Julio Jones, just throwing out some names. And then anything from the Packers game, my big takeaway was the Packers just kind of coasted, and they realized that they just need to win. They're like, hey, we don't need to win big. We just need to keep winning, coast to victory. And shout out to the Panthers' young defense holding Devontae Adams to 0 touchdowns, only a handful of yards. He was not a factor like he has been the recent weeks. That was my takeaway. Anything from that game for you, Joe?
Yeah, just the Packers are the better team. The Panthers aren't there yet. Panthers have had a little bit of I don't want to say dysfunction, but they just fired their general manager. There's already talks about replacing Bridgewater, which we knew
right.
was gonna happen, but I think he had a 3-year deal, something like that, and
it's 3 years, $60 million.
Yeah, and he hasn't been bad this year by any means. He hasn't been great. I think he's been very serviceable as a bridge quarterback. Just like kind of a couple things coming out of Carolina that was a little surprised to hear. When overall I've felt like they had a positive season for Matt Rule's first season as a head coach, and Joe Brady and, just kind of a brand new Carolina Panthers team, I felt like it's been a little bit more positive than, the way that their organization seemed to speak of it. But that's also, kind of a good thing, in terms of reestablishing that culture. I mean, they only have 4 wins. So, it's not something to be happy about or excited about if you're a player there. But I do think it's interesting just kind of the way it came out. But I do understand that it's important to kind of get that culture going there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, maybe the Panthers with an early top 10 pick, there's so many quarterbacks. Maybe they do get somebody to sit behind Teddy for a year or two, and we'll see.
Right.
I think Teddy would be a great mentor for a young quarterback, and we'll see this Panthers team we'll be picking tomorrow, Joe. Maybe they play spoiler again and keep the Eagles in the playoff race. They do have a matchup with the football team this week. If the football team, they only need one more win, just one more win, and they win the division. So we'll see if the Panthers can play spoiler to give the Eagles a shot in Week 17. But now we're hopping into the Sunday slate, Joe. We're starting off in Atlanta, and I don't know what to say about this Falcons team. They did it again, and they did it to the guy who started it all, Tom Brady, this time on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And they played an awful first half, which is why Atlanta was up so big. But that second half, the Buccaneers made those second half adjustments and played damn near perfect. So that was my takeaway. The Falcons, Calvin Ridley saw the game. Hayden Hurst got a touchdown, which was nice to see. So I don't know what's up with the Falcons, man, but the Buccaneers get a much-needed win on the road. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was really impressed with what I saw from the defense in the second half after, Devin White has been just like really good this year, really underrated. He probably should have gone to the Pro Bowl, but, there's only so many spots, and I think it was Fred Warner and Bobby Wagner.
Right.
But he has very comparable stats to Bobby Wagner and has a couple more sacks as well. I've been really impressed with what I've seen from him. He was just flying around in that Atlanta game, making some big plays. I think he had a really big sack on Matt Ryan towards the end of the game to get the ball back for them. But, that defense, they've got to be consistent. They've got to play 4 quarters because they have the potential to be a really strong defense, which is, as we know, huge going into the playoffs. But, if they're not – and that's been the whole theme with this Buccaneers team. They just haven't been consistent for 4 quarters outside of maybe one game. So that's the concern for the Buccaneers. It's definitely good that they're able to, find ways to win in these tough games. But, again, on paper and that for the expectations that everybody had for them, this team should be winning these games a lot easier than they have been. So going to be interesting to see how it goes in the playoffs with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they do get that 5 seed, I mean, the football team or the Giants could easily beat this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. So it'll be interesting to see where they line up in the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, I think there's still a chance that they don't. Now moving on to 2 teams that definitely won't be making the playoffs, Joe. The Dallas Cowboys beating the 49ers 41-33. You picked the Cowboys. I picked the 49ers. That was my first loss, but that puts us both at 4-1 so far. And my takeaway is I should have picked up Tony Pollard in a league that I had Ezekiel Elliott. And going off of that, and I said this probably about a month ago, a couple of weeks ago, that when Tony Pollard was in the game, he was averaging 5-6 yards per carry, and Zeke wasn't. So I don't know if Zeke has been having this sort of injury lingering all season long. I wouldn't be surprised at the end of the year if we get something to saying like, hey, Zeke was playing the last half, on some bad ankle or bad knee or whatever. Because like a month ago, I was seeing Tony Pollard, and he was running the ball really well. He was running really great. And now with Zeke out, he really showed that, hey, this is a solid backup behind Zeke. They can win if Zeke were to go down for, long term, or, for some reason, if they move away from Zeke, Tony Pollard could be a starting running back in the NFL. That was my big takeaway from that. Joe, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, kind of on that same tangent, it's just this is why you don't take a running back number 4 overall. I mean, he came into the NFL having so much work from – how many carries and touches he had at Ohio State, just so many tread on the tires already. And he takes on, an extremely high workload his first couple of years on the Cowboys. It's the running back is the most violent position in the NFL. You take more contact than any other spot. The shelf life for that position is so much lower so much shorter than every other position. It just, I mean, this was coming. This was only a matter of time. I mean, this whole year watching Zeke, you can see it. He looks like a shell of his former self. I mean, he's fumbling left and right. He doesn't have those big explosive runs like he used to. he just doesn't really seem to have that it factor like he did his first few years. And, it was expected. This is a decline. Like it happens in the NFL. It's just kind of the way it goes. So I'm not surprised to see it. It's definitely, something that the Cowboys got to kind of figure out. Are they going to continue to hold on to this expensive running back who might not be as explosive as his cheap backup, Tony Pollard? So it's a very interesting situation the Cowboys are going to have themselves in the offseason with a couple of contracts. The Eagles are in no better position there at all. So, it's definitely going to be a lot of changes, I think, this offseason kind of across the board, especially for the Eagles. But I think the Cowboys do have some tough decisions on their hands as well. I was really shocked with the 49ers defense.
Mm-hmm.
It's Andy Dalton and Dallas Cowboys. I get it. There was that onside kick that got him over 40, but you allowed 30 plus to Andy Dalton and Tony Pollard in this 5-win team now, Dallas Cowboys. Wow. So I'm all about it. Like I said, I picked the Cowboys, and now this helps the Eagles draft spot. So it works for me. But I'm definitely don't know what to make of the 49ers defense a little bit after that outing.
Yeah, and it doesn't get any easier this upcoming week with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald and that whole gang in a much-needed divisional matchup for the Cardinals. Now it's time for my Baltimore Ravens, Joe. We had the Jacksonville Jaguars come to town. They didn't bring a punter. That was funny. But we win 40-14. And I obviously don't want to say we're back, but it seems like we are getting that mojo back and that swagger that we saw last year when we were going 14-2 of just, we're going to go in, we're going to run the football, we're going to move the football offensively, we're going to dominate, get a couple of turnovers here and there from our lights-out defense. But the big takeaway from this is, and we'll get to these for a couple of games later, when you're playing a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Jets or even the Bengals, you have to, and you're a team like the Ravens or Steelers or Rams, you have to win 40-14. You have to win by 20-plus points, maybe even 30-plus points, especially at home. And we'll get to that later. But that was my big takeaway, is that this was a game that we had to do it, and we did do it. And hopefully we can carry the momentum into the playoffs. We do need a little bit of help. We can still go 11-5 and not make the playoffs, believe it or not. But that was my big takeaway. And, it's nice to see the offense clicking. And then also Des Bryant getting his first touchdown since 2017. That was a lot of fun. Probably like 9 to 10 years too late for him to do it in a Ravens uniform. We were ready to take him, and the Cowboys swooped in the pick before us. I believe that was the Tim Tebow draft. I think once the Cowboys
I think that's right.
As we traded back to the Denver Broncos. So that was my big takeaway, Joe. Any thoughts from this Ravens-Jaguars game?
Yeah, I was considering picking the Jaguars just to because we weren't doing it on the podcast, so I thought it would be really funny to see your reaction going through those. Now we got the Jaguars, Ravens. Like, of course, I'm gonna pick the Ravens, and Joe picked the Jaguars. I don't even have Joe here to defend himself. Like, I was just thinking about that. I thought that would have been really funny, and I would have loved to see it. But the Ravens are a better team, and it's a win for the Jaguars since now they're in the number 1 draft spot. And they're going to take Trevor Lawrence if they can. Which if you add Trevor Lawrence to this team, I really like their offensive skill positions in terms of their young talent. James Robinson, undrafted running back, and then DJ Chark, he's been pretty good over his career. Keelan Cole, solid. The other one from Oklahoma, D.D. Westbrook, he's been solid as well. So they've got some guys, at the skill position on offense that I think Trevor Lawrence will do well with. I think it definitely puts them in a little bit more, it's a much better spot for Trevor Lawrence, to come in and find success versus if he goes to the Jets, and they don't have much talent at all there. So it then creates a very interesting question for the Jets of, do we move on from Darnold and take Justin Fields or Zach Wilson, or are these guys that much better than Darnold, or is Darnold pretty comparable and we should just invest in surrounding him with talent? So another very interesting storyline to watch in the offseason. It'll be interesting if Jacksonville can somehow sneak in out of this and swap it back to, I'm sure, all of New York Jets fans' delight.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, that's always a fun battle in week 15, 16, 17 is the battle for the number one pick. And I believe the Jaguars have it right now because of strength of record. The Jaguars beat the
Right.
Colts. The Jets beat the Rams. Well, both of those teams are, 9-5, 10-4. So they're right there. It's not, this could come down to the final week. And I don't know if it's as simple as that other team's record, but, you know, if the Colts do a little bit better or the Rams pick up a couple of wins, the Colts fall a couple of games, like it's going to be interesting to see them
Right.
flip-flop because I don't know if I think the Jets have the Browns and then the Patriots. So who knows with that? And the Jaguars have the Colts again, I believe. And I don't know who they play this upcoming week. But anyways, enough about the Ravens and Jaguars. It's time for the Bears and the Vikings. The Bears look like pretty good in the last couple of weeks. And it's not all Mitch Trubisky. He had a great game against the Texans, and we said this last week, David Montgomery is showing why there was so much promise for him this year, why they took him in late second or early third whenever they took him last year. So David Montgomery's been running the ball really well recently. Bears win 33-27. Joe, you went with the Vikings. I went with the Bears, not the Bears, excuse me. So talk to me about Bears Vikings.
Yeah, it was a tough call for me in this one. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like either of these teams or either of the quarterbacks, and I just felt like what we've seen so far this year from Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen versus what we've seen from Mitch Trubisky and that Bears offense. Just seemed like Kirk Cousins was going to outplay him, and he just didn't. Mitch Trubisky just had another really good game. I mean, this Vikings secondary is not very good. A lot of teams are starting to kind of take advantage of a couple mismatches out there. And Trubisky did his job well. I mean, I don't think he really had any turnovers. If he did, it was a very low amount. And you said it, David Montgomery is really just having a great end of the season. With Tariq Cohen out this year, David Montgomery's really had that chance to, be the lead back workhorse and really shine. I'm not sure what Tariq Cohen's contract situation is like for the Bears, but I can't imagine that they're going to be looking to pay him, decent money for another running back that would just be taking away snaps from David Montgomery. So very interesting matchup. I know Justin Jefferson was getting a little upset with Kirk Cousins after one of those plays. So it made me laugh a little bit. I don't want a diva like that in Philly anyway. Just kidding. Our quarterback's a diva.
just imagine what he would be saying if Carson Wentz was his quarterback. But yeah, and the Bears are still in the hunt somehow, and it might be interesting. I don't know if this is correct, but if the Packers win this week, that might clinch them the number one seed. So playing the Bears in week 17, they might just be relaxing everybody. So if the Bears get a little bit of help, I mean, we've said it, there's no dominant team in the NFC. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Buccaneers fell another game or two. They have the tiebreaker over the Buccaneers. So the Bears could easily find their way into that 7 seed. So it'll be interesting to see their last couple of matchups. And this next game, Joe, the Titans beating the Lions 46-25. I didn't watch too much of this game, but this was definitely a game where you see that score and you see like the stats and you're like, yeah, that sounds about right. Like I knew it was going to be a high scoring game. I said take the over. We all said the Titans were going to win. And just like I said, seeing it, you'd be like, yeah, sounds about right. So that was my takeaway. Derrick Henry looked good. Two more games to get to 2K. And do you think he can do it, Joe?
Oh, I definitely think he can do it. I mean, I saw some ridiculous stat with, Derrick Henry's first 26 games, without Ryan Tannehill or something. It was like, gosh, it wasn't that crazy. It was like 1,300 total yards or something like that. And then since Ryan Tannehill, it's like at least doubled that. I don't think Ryan Tannehill is getting enough credit for what he's done this year. I mean, his stats are right up there with Patrick Mahomes. Like, it's unreal. I mean, I think he has less yards, but I think he has either the same or more touchdowns. He has less turnovers, a higher QB rating. It's unreal. Ryan Tannehill's he's had such a resurgence, and what he's done for that offense is spectacular. I definitely think he got snubbed for the Pro Bowl. I would have put him in there over Deshaun Watson this year. But I mean, that Lions defense, their secondary. I mean, Jeff Okudah was already done for the year. They really didn't have that many other good players. players in the secondaries. A.J. Brown had a good game. Corey Davis caught a 75-yard touchdown. Jonnu Smith is healthy, and he's working the middle of the field a little bit more and some of those underneath patterns. And then, when your QB and your skill positions, like your receivers and everyone, is playing well, you've got to respect that. And what does that do? It opens up so much space for tractor Derrick Henry. Oh, man. This man was rolling. I don't know if you saw that stiff arm. I'm sure you did, Tim. But, yeah, that was aggressive. So, it is that time of year for the Titans and Derrick Henry. The defense is still shaky, still not really where I think they want to be going into the playoffs. But, with the way this offense is playing right now, I mean, it's just so completely different from what it seemed like last year when Tannehill was more kind of managing everything and handing off to Derrick Henry and letting him kind of take it over. Tannehill is playing like an MVP right now, and it is awesome to see. I'm really happy for him. It's a really cool story.
Yeah, and when he took over in like week 9 or 10 last year, since then the Titans, I don't know the record off my top of my head, but it has to be like 16-6 or like 17-5. It has to be somewhere around there. Yeah. And then you look at Tannehill. I mean, he was a first-round pick. I believe he was number 10 overall, but he went to the Miami Dolphins. And, Joe, who was the coach of Miami Dolphins at that time? Adam Gase. And once he left Adam Gase to the Titans, he's doing well. Kenyon Drake's doing very well in Arizona. So these people are leaving Adam Gase and are doing very well and living up to their high draft pick or their potential. So very excited for the Titans. And,
look at just what Miami's doing.
Right. I mean, there's so many things, so many players, and hopefully the Jets realize that they can fire Adam Gase. And the Titans defense still worries me, but we'll see what happens with their playoff matchup. And now we're moving to the other AFC South team that they're battling in the division with, the Indianapolis Colts, beating the Houston Texans 27-20. Again, the Texans fumble in the red zone right around the 5-yard line, 4-5-yard line to give the Colts the victory. And my big takeaway from this, Joe, is I hope Deshaun Watson is not the next Matt Stafford, where he's just putting up insane stats, having great games, has some decent weapons around him, but the rest of the team and organization is just so dysfunctional that they can't win football games. So that's my big takeaway. I really hope that Deshaun Watson doesn't turn into that Matt Stafford type of guy. But on the flip side, the Colts defense looked good. They got the turnovers they needed. Obviously, offensively, they moved the ball just well to put up 27 points. So they solidified their chances of making the playoffs a little bit more. Joe, what about your thoughts from this Colts-Texans game?
Yeah, it was a little closer than I would have liked for, the Colts who, are fighting for this playoff spot and, kind of got lucky there at the end. I mean, the Texans are driving. Their Kiki Kute, I think it was, who caught it at like the 5 and turned upfield and, was very close to scoring the touchdown, but just had it punched out. I mean, if he doesn't fumble there, he might have scored on that play or they score on the next play and it's a tie game and who knows. So that's definitely concerning to me that was the way the Colts won because it did not look they deserved to, win that way. And it seemed like, they, like I said, they just got lucky there. So that's not the kind of win I want to see from the Colts against, Texans team that, is their season's a wash this year. Bill O'Brien's gone, all that good stuff. So I would have liked to see a little bit of a better game from the Colts, but they did get the win. They're staying pace right there with the Tennessee Titans. And man, if they had not lost to Jacksonville week 1, oh man, they really wish they had that win back right now.
Yeah, well, they get their revenge in week 17, so hopefully the Colts can pull it together, and hopefully that makes the Jaguars go 1-15 as I predicted. And now it's time for the AFC East battle. Saturday night, we found out that the Bills are going to win the AFC East with their win in Denver. And then it's up to the Dolphins to win a couple of games to stay alive in the wild card race. And the Dolphins and Tua defeat the New England Patriots 22-17. By no means was it a good game by the Dolphins, but this game officially eliminated the Patriots from playoff contention for the first time in a long time. And, Joe, it finally happened. The Patriots are not going to be in the playoffs. Looks like that the reign is over for this Patriots dynasty. And, of course, when Tom Brady left, that was a big indication. But we thought with Cam Newton, Bill Belichick, they could do it. But my big takeaway is the Dolphins team really needs to improve, especially offensively. Tua did have a couple of rushing touchdowns, and the Dolphins defense did a good job against the Patriots offense and Cam Newton. But, I mean, that offense didn't look so good, only 22 points. And when they're playing a team like the Titans or the Bills, you know, they're going to have to put up points to the Chiefs. And when we saw last week, they have to put up points to beat the Chiefs. So definitely a little bit of a concern going in the final couple of weeks, but they still get the win. They're still the 7th seed in the AFC. Hopefully they lose this weekend. But Joe, your thoughts from Dolphins Patriots?
Yeah, I wasn't as concerned with their offense. I think that I know Devontae Parker didn't play. I know Myles Gaskin was a last-second add to the COVID list. I think there was at least one other receiver, if not another, that also didn't play this game. So I mean, going into it, like they had a couple different, you know, kind of key skill position players missing. And I mean, it's the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick, who are notoriously very good against rookie quarterbacks. So, you know, I'm not as concerned with that performance. I mean, they found a way to win. The defense still played well. I mean, I picked the Patriots to win. I really thought Cam was going to have a good game and outplay Tua and get the win. And, you know, he very well could have. Tua did not have that great a game. But, you know, this Patriots offense just cannot get out of their own way and cannot really get anything going. So, you know, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what direction they go in the offseason as well. You know, they could be one of the teams that takes on Carson Wentz in his contract. You know, they could go for Matt Stafford. You know, like maybe Jimmy Garoppolo comes back to New England. You know, they could draft a quarterback, you know, and somewhere in the top 15. You know, it might not be one of the top guys, but I mean, you know, who's the Alabama quarterback? Mac
Jones.
Mac Jones, Kyle Trask. You know, either of those guys I could see being successful with Bill Belichick. So they have some options of where they want to go. I don't think Cam will be back there though. It's tough to see because like in 2015 when Cam was Super Cam and they went to the Super Bowl, you know, they did not have good skill position players around him. I mean, it was Jericho Cotchery, Devin Funchess. Can't remember if Kelvin Benjamin was on that team or not, but it was not good skill positions, and Cam was able to kind of will that team to the Super Bowl and just put it all on his shoulders. But he was so dynamic back then, and you know, fast forward 5 years to 2020, same position, not really great skill position around him. You know, a lot of it's all on him, and he's just not making the plays that we saw him make 5 years ago. So, you know, Father Time catches up to everyone. And with Cam, you know, he's taken so much more punishment and, you know, so many more hits than most quarterbacks take. So he just doesn't really have that, you know, elite athleticism, that edge, you know, anymore. So it's tough to see. It'll be, you know, this might be it for Cam Newton after this year.
Yeah, and I think the best thing about this Patriots team is that they're that team that's going to go 8-8 and get like pick 16, 17, like the Ravens have had a couple of times. And it's kind of like, all right, we could have lost the last couple of weeks and gotten like pick number 10, but so I think that's like the best case scenario for people who don't like the Patriots is that they're going 8-8, just smack dab in the middle. But now time for a game that also meant something. The Seattle Seahawks go all the way on the road to the East Coast, the Washington football team. Dwayne Haskins almost mounted a comeback, but they missed an extra point. Therefore, they had to go for two. And they didn't get it. They lose 20-15. Seahawks do win. But I think the big story from this game, Joe, I don't know if you heard about this, but after the game, Dwayne Haskins was photographed at a strip club without wearing a mask. And he issued an apology on social media. And it was the typical, like, I'm sorry for what I did, for my teammates, my coaches. I'm going to learn from this and grow from this. First of all, no, you're not going to learn and grow from this, Dwayne.
Yeah, get out of here.
Secondly, you almost did mount a comeback against the Seahawks, and if the football team had a kicker that made an extra point, they wouldn't have had to go for two, and instead of trying to score a touchdown at the end, they only had to get in the field goal range. But they really need Alex Smith because that really elevates the offense, Antonio Gibson as well. So that was my big takeaway. I knew this would be a close game, and I knew the Seahawks were going to win. And with the Jets losing, this is a huge win for the Seattle Seahawks, and that matchup is happening this weekend, likely for the NFC West. But, Joe, your thoughts from Seahawks football team?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's crazy to see just how much the Seattle offense has kind of dropped off from the beginning of the year when we were already a crowned Russell Wilson MVP and Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf were just every week it was one of them was going off and you couldn't stop them both. And, now they've faced some tougher defenses. There's a lot more film on all of them this year. And I mean, they've just cooled off so much. I mean, it's a tough defense with Washington. It's a tough front seven. Their secondary is playing really well. So I don't want to take any of that away from them. But I mean, I'm not nearly as confident in the Seahawks team as I was, halfway through the season. And I mean, it's concerning. They've, like you said, they got lucky that the Jets beat the Rams, and now they have a chance to win the division. You can't just rely on, all these things to go your way so you can sneak into, the wild card or into the division lead. You got to be able to control your own destiny. And I mean, the Seahawks, they're getting the wins, but it doesn't look clean. It doesn't look pretty. We'll see if they're able to turn it on in December. But yeah, that Dwayne Haskins nonsense. I mean, it's just disrespectful. I mean, your team is fighting for a playoff spot. You're the starting quarterback. You just came in. You started at the beginning of the year. You got benched. You have another shot at it now. And you played us. I mean, it wasn't a great game, but you had a chance at the end. It's still something to build on. And, this is what you do. It's just disrespectful to your teammates, to the organization, I feel like. So I don't see how Dwayne Haskins comes back. I didn't think that he was going to come back and still be on the team by this time. I think there were a couple of reports after he got benched where he was like not showing up at practice or something like that. So, I mean, it's crazy. I really hope Alex Smith is ready, because I think Dwayne Haskins is either going to get suspended and not be able to play, and then they have to play like Chad Heineke, I believe, former Panthers backup QB against the Panthers. So it'll be interesting with the Ron Rivera revenge game. But I mean, if I'm Ron Rivera, I don't know if this is the quarterback I want to be trotting out there for my revenge game.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, if they had won the game and that clinched in the division, sure, go out and celebrate. Just like wear a mask during these times. So like if that happened, to be like, all right, like he was just celebrating, no big deal. But because it was after a loss, and because of what you said of everything that went down with him in the offseason and even during the season, that just keeps, it's a snowball effect. It just keeps snowballing, and eventually the avalanche is going to come down. So we'll see. You nailed it, the Ron Rivera revenge game. We'll talk about that tomorrow when we make our picks. And now it's time for upset of the day, probably upset of the season, Joe. The New York Jets. I repeat, the New York Jets win a football game. Not only did they win a football game, Joe, they won a football game on the road. Not only did they win a game on the road, they won a game on the road on the West Coast, cross-country trip. Oh, yeah, by the way, they beat the Rams, who were 9-4, and the NFC West division leaders at the time. But they win 23-20. They went up big. The Rams came back. They tied it with the Cam Akers touchdown. Hope he gets better. High ankle sprain, already out for this week against the Seahawks. But, I mean, they had a holding penalty to get the tying touchdown called back, and it was just a bad game from the Rams. And I don't even have any takeaways from this except for – that was a bad game by the Rams. They should have won. Joe, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I didn't have this game on during the 1 o'clock game. It wasn't one that I was keeping up with. So when I went back and watched the highlights, big thing for me was I couldn't find any highlights from the Rams, until like the very end of the game. And it was just too little too late. I mean, all of their highlights were Jared Goff turning the ball over or just taking a sack. I mean, it was just so many negative plays by that offense. And, the Jets offense, they were able to do enough. They didn't have a great game. They didn't go off by any means, but they did enough against Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey. This is not a matchup that they should win ever.
Right.
This is unreal. This is definitely the worst loss of Sean McVay's career. Maybe with the Super Bowl. I mean, it's a Super Bowl loss versus the Patriots versus a regular season game against the Jets. But still, it's that bad. So it's like, man, people were ready to crown this Rams team as like one of the top 5 teams in the NFL, one of the teams that has the best chance to beat Patrick Mahomes. And then they do this against the Jets?
Right.
Oh, my God. So, yeah, I've said it before. I think Sean McVay's overrated. I don't think Jared Goff is that. And I mean that their offensive scheme can be stopped. And this Jets D-line stepped up. They have some guys like Quinnen Williams who have been playing well, and it's gone under the radar all year because of how bad the Jets are. But Quinnen Williams has had a pretty solid season, and the rest of that D-line really kind of took over this game. And Jared Goff was never comfortable. So it lost me one fantasy semifinal since I had Cooper Kupp. Against the Jets, he ended with like 9 points. Like, God, how could I have known Cooper Kupp was going to get 9 points against the Jets and J.D. McKissick was going to get 25 against the Seahawks? So, what are you going to do? But, yeah, there's a lot of angry gamblers out there with both the Jets and the Rams right now. So,
yeah,
and we'll get to the other team that gamblers are probably angry at.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I'm happy about that. But yeah, that sums it up. And you said it, Joe. People were saying the Rams were, in the top 5 for power rankings and all that stuff. And now, if they go into Seattle and win 45-0 on Sunday, yeah, I'll believe that. But I can't believe that right now. And now we're moving on to the other NFC West team that's vying for a playoff spot. The Arizona Cardinals defeat the Jalen Hurts Eagles 33-26. Jalen Hurts looked very good, Joe. You're going to talk about it in a second. He looked great. The offense was clicking a little bit more. But on the flip side, the defense, the depleted secondary that you guys had with a bunch of no names, just couldn't stop DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, that go-ahead touchdown. Boy, Joe, wouldn't it be nice to have a wide receiver like that on the Eagles and Ravens? Oh, my God, what a catch and what a throw that was. So the Cardinals did just enough to win this game, but definitely feel very good about Jalen Hurts being the quarterback for the Eagles. He was moving the ball. I don't think he fumbled. He didn't have an interception, but no turnovers. And, it was a good game. But, Joe, it's your Eagles. And you told me this morning you might be sipping the Jalen juice a little bit. So how about you go on and talk about your Eagles?
A little bit. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I mean, it's still such a small sample size.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I remember the first 4 games of Carson Wentz's career, everyone was hailing him, the next coming of Peyton Manning. He had the highest ever grade for a rookie quarterback in his first few starts by Pro Football Focus.
Mm-hmm.
He beat the Steelers with throwing to Dorial Green Beckham, Jordan Matthews, and Nelson Aguilar, his rookie year. We were like 3-1 to start out, I think. I mean, so I want to temper expectations there. But with that being said, Jalen Hurts has looked a lot better than I expected. Last week against the Saints, a lot of it was him using his legs, kind of one read, not really using his arm or throwing from the pocket as much. This game was very different. We had a very slow start kind of everywhere in the first quarter. He took a bad safety. It was intentional grounding in the end zone. And, the defense, the defense played a little bit better than people expected, considering all the backups. I mean, on Cardinals' first drive, Michael Jacquet, you ever heard of him? Me neither. Started at corner, forced a fumble on DeAndre Hopkins. I think he was sacking Kyler Murray when Roby Coleman forced another fumble on him later in the game. So, I liked what I saw from the defense, but yeah, they were just overmatched. In the second quarter, Jalen Hurts just really kind of took over. I think we scored 20 points in the second quarter. He was taking shots down the field, putting a nice touch on all of his throws, kind of giving receivers a chance to make a play. Even like his screen passes are just in good position for a guy to catch it in stride and do something with it. He did take a good bit of sacks in this game. I think he was sacked 6 times. He didn't have any turnovers, but he did fumble 3 times and have another dropped interception. So, there are definitely some things to clean up. But again, a lot of his damage this game was from the pocket, and Alshon Jeffrey had a good game. He was really spreading the ball around to everyone. I mean, Quez Watkins caught a touchdown. Zach Ertz had 2 catches, 69 yards. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Reagor did some good things. Travis Fulgham, he made some catches at the end of the game, reappeared like a wild Pokemon. So definitely a lot of good things I liked out of Jalen Hurts in this game. It's just a matter of is this sustainable? I mean, this is a solid Arizona defense, and I didn't expect him to be able to, be as consistent as he was, but the offense he's the spark. I mean, everyone's playing better. I really enjoyed watching this football game. Like, I really did. I mean, we were down 16-0, and he didn't waver. You know, he didn't look like the moment was too big. He didn't panic. You know, that's just been the biggest takeaway for me with Jalen Hurts. He just looks composed. He just has such great poise back there, and just looks like he belongs. You know, after the game, he's talking about, like, yeah, I don't care about people saying, like, it was a great game by a second-round pick, rookie, whatever. Like, we got the loss, and you know, that's not acceptable. You know, like, I don't tolerate that. You know, I hold myself to a higher standard. I mean, he's saying all the right things too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really impressed with what I've seen from Jalen Hurts. I'm excited to see what he does this week against Dallas, and most likely against Washington at the end of the year as well. I mean, the way he's playing right now, it's how do you not start him next year? You know, and then couple that with that came out on Sunday that, you know, which is, I think it's ridiculous that it came out on game day, that I think it was Adam Schefter reported it, that Carson Wentz is not happy with the situation with the Eagles and does not want to remain in Philadelphia if he continues to back Jalen up. Like, my God, dude, like, you just sound like so whiny, you know, just, it's soft. I mean, you know, you draft somebody, you draft your backup in the second round. I get it. And you just implode like this. I mean, you look at Mitch Trubisky, you know, he was the number 2 overall pick. He got benched, you know, he was playing bad this year. He got benched, and now he's coming back and he's fighting for his job and fighting for his team. Wentz is just crumbling. It's also like, hey, brother, you know, you have this massive contract, bro. Like, you signed all this money. Like, if you don't want to be here, let's renegotiate. Let's figure it out. You know, that's kind of what my takeaway from that report was. He doesn't want to be here if he's going to be the backup. It's not really realistic for us to move on from him unless he restructures his contract. So it seemed like maybe like his representation is kind of getting out there to the NFL. We don't want to be here in Philadelphia anymore. Reach out to the Eagles, reach out to us. Maybe we, you know, work out, you know, renegotiation with the contract. So that's the way it seems like it's heading. You know, like I said, with the way Jalen Hurts is playing right now, if he continues to play like this, you know, to end the season, I don't see how you don't, you know, name him the starter for 2021 and try to build around him for next year and see what you got. I mean, again, the offense looks just so much more efficient, and, you know, just he's having trust in his receivers, throwing it before they're taking their breaks, trusting the O-line. And managing the pocket a lot better than Carson Wentz has all year. And, I mean, he's cheap. So if we can get rid of Wentz, build around Jalen Hurts, you know, that can definitely be, you know, a successful team. I mean, we've got a lot of other things that, you know, we got to fix. But, I mean, this team just beat the Saints. This team just hung right there with the Cardinals while decimated by injuries in our secondary and offensive line, and a rookie quarterback. So, a lot of this to me is speaking to Doug Peterson. You know, I had like a couple weeks in there where I was, you know, a little anti-Doug, and, you know, just kind of like, let's blow it all up and fire everyone. I still think that Howie Roseman has the most to answer for this year, but I don't think he will. And I would hate to see Doug Peterson be the one to get scapegoated because of a terrible season by Carson Wentz. You know, and that's what these last couple games are showing me. I mean, when Hurts is in there, he's running the offense that's called. He's not changing the plays. He's having trust in his coaching staff, trust in his teammates to run the plays that are called and execute them. And he's doing a good job. So, again, we don't know how many of these plays Wentz is changing. But from what I can see now with Jalen Hurts, the offense looks better. The play calling looks a little bit I like what I'm seeing from the play calling a lot more than I did, you know, the majority of the season. So, and everyone's fighting, you know, that's another thing, you know, the team is just fighting and trying to, you know, do what they can to fight for their coach, fight for their team, fight for a potential playoff spot, because we're still not goddamn eliminated. So we'll see what happens. But I really enjoyed watching this game, and, you know, it was perfect outcome for me because we lost, and still a better draft pick. Cowboys won. You know, I had Kyler Murray in fantasy, so that helped too.
Yeah, and one of the nice things about Jalen Hurts too is that Zach Ertz with 69 yards was like the leading receiver. So for Jalen Hurts to throw for 340 yards and really spread out the ball, that's really good to see from a young quarterback with some less undesirable targets. We'll say. I think it's without that the Eagles can improve at wide receiver. Now to two quarterbacks who love to spread the ball around to everybody, Patrick Mahomes and Drew Brees. The Chiefs win 32-29 in New Orleans. And, when I was watching this game, and maybe this is just my mindset with Mahomes and the Chiefs, but it was just never a doubt. Like, even the score was only 3 points. Like, I was never sitting there watching being like, the Saints might win this game. And late in the game for like a third down or fourth down, I was like on the edge of my seat being like, the Saints could get this and like score. Like, to me, it was just like, all right, the Chiefs are going to win this game. And they did. Like, I just felt like it was never a doubt. And if this is a Super Bowl matchup, which it very well could be, I would be very excited because Tony Romo said it, Jim Nantz said it, everybody was saying it. Drew Brees did not look 100%. So it seems like that they did rush him, but I think it was the best decision as obviously they only lost by 3 points. If Taysom Hill was the quarterback, I don't think it would have been close. So that was my takeaway from the game. Obviously, Mahomes and the Chiefs did great. And that's all I got to say. Joe, how about yourself, man?
No, I was right there with you. Like, I mean, from the start, it just never really seemed like there was a doubt. I mean, yeah, I think the Chiefs got up like 14-0 at one point, or 14-3 or something like that. I mean, it just never really seemed like the Saints were right there, even when at the end of the game, they're close and within a score, but I just felt like, okay, well, even if the Chiefs end up going down at the end, then I know Patrick Mahomes, if there's time left, he's going to find a way to score. So I mean, like you said, just never a doubt the whole time. It'd be very interesting to see if these teams do face each other in the Super Bowl with a healthy Drew Brees, healthy Michael Thomas, just kind of more full strength. Interesting to see how that matchup would play out. Then the Clyde Edwards-Helaire injury, that's definitely tough for a lot of fantasy managers, to close out the season. So thank God you have a guy like Le'Veon Bell as a backup backup running back. This is why you signed him.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they only had playoff Damian again, but I think the Chiefs offense will be just fine with Le'Veon Bell with all of their weapons and Patrick Mahomes as quarterback. And Joe, Sunday Night Football, Browns beat the Giants 20-6. And this was another, I was just playing Call of Duty with the roommates. I didn't watch too much of this game, but after seeing some of the highlights and like some of the stats, it was just, again, like just one of those games where the Browns just happened to be the better team and win 20-6, score a couple of more touchdowns. So, I mean, that was my takeaway. Any thoughts from the Browns-Giants?
Yeah, I mean, the Giants were able to move the ball a good bit in the game and kind of get down the red zone, just couldn't really punch it in. I mean, it's Colt McCoy, it's Freddie Kitchens calling the plays. You don't really
backup running back.
Exactly. You don't really have great receiving options to begin with there. So, it's just not a very inspiring offense. So I was impressed they were able to move the ball, but then you just got to be more creative than a fake field goal. At like the 5-yard line to get those points in. So I would have liked to see a little bit more aggressive calls than that. I mean, it was a winnable game for the Giants. The Browns, what are they, 10-4 now? Is that right?
The Browns are 10-4, yes.
Yeah, I mean, they're 10-4, but they don't look like it. Kind of like the Steelers have. For me, when the Eagles played them, they were not that inspiring. Against the Eagles. Just the last few games, I just haven't been, that blown away by them. I mean, if it's a defensive game, run the ball kind of game, and bad weather, that's what they're built to do and built to win. So, these are the games, kind of grind it out and win 20-6. That's a solid win for the Browns, but I don't know. I just don't see a team like that being able to beat Mahomes or one of the other top playoff teams in the in the AFC playoffs this year. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, and we'll see this weekend when the Ravens play the Giants. But you said it, Joe. I mean, the Browns a couple of weeks ago played a very close one with the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Steelers beat the Jaguars, I believe, 27-3. Ravens won big this time. So we'll see, like, if the Ravens can really dominate this Giants team. You're starting to question, like, yo, the Browns have Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Baker, Jarvis, like Njoku. Like, they have these weapons, Austin Hooper. Like, why aren't they beating these teams, 35-10, like their other divisional opponents? But I think the Browns will be just fine. They have the Jets this week, although the Jets are playing some pretty good football. We'll pick that game tomorrow. And then the final game of the week, Joe, this was beautiful to watch, although a Steelers win would have, helped the Ravens. But the Cincinnati Bengals, without Joe Burrow, without Brandon Allen, third-string quarterback Ryan Finley beats the Pittsburgh Steelers 27-17. The Steelers didn't get a first down until midway through the second quarter. Big Ben looked off. I mean, that one interception was just thrown literally right at that defender. Had a couple of fumbles as well. Deontay Johnson was catching the ball. I mean, he didn't have any huge drops. Juju Smith-Schuster dancing on the logo and then getting lit up. The Bengals were ready to play, and they had nothing to lose, and I think that was the big thing. But the Steelers, I mean, I was saying it when they were 8-9-0 that, like, hold on, people. They are not the dominant, undefeated team, and I'm glad people are starting to realize that the Steelers are good. They're still going to make the playoffs, probably going to win the division, probably win a playoff game if they can get right, because they do have the talent offensively and defensively, but they need to reevaluate because they got the Colts and the Browns to end the season. This was a game that they absolutely had to win. If they had won last night, they would have clinched the division, so it would have been a little bit of an easier last couple of weeks and could have rested some people that might be lingering with some injuries. But, shout out to the Bengals, man. And, once they get Joe Burrow back in a couple of pieces, Joe Mixon, Joe Burrow, a better offensive line, this is going to be a fun AFC North for the next couple of years. And when Big Ben retires, whoever comes in to replace him, hopefully it's a fun 4-team race for years to come. But Joe, what were your thoughts for Monday Night Football?
Yeah, I don't know if I was more disappointed in Big Ben and the Steelers offense or impressed with the Bengals defense. I mean, watching that game, that D-line was just getting after Ben all game. I mean, I think it was Shaq Lawson who was working Alejandro Villanueva, who's the
Josh
best
Bynes,
tackle.
the linebacker.
Yeah, he had a huge game. I mean, I think Von Bell was the one who put that hit on Juju Smith-Schuster. And they were talking about how that hit just really gave them a lot of energy and a lot of juice for the rest of that game. Just kind of like, yeah, we're here. We can do this. Like, yeah, we're another NFL team. Yeah, you're the Steelers and we're the Bengals, but, we're still in this same division. We're still a rivalry, and we're going to remind you why. And, they went out there and got it. It's a huge win for Zach Taylor and, just Cincinnati in general. And, I mean, just so concerning for this team. It's the Bengals defense, and your offense had 40 yards in the first half. 40 yards of total offense. No points. I think, like, their first 8 drives were, like, turnover on downs, fumble, turnover on downs, intercept, or maybe another fumble, and then interception, then turnover on downs, halftime. Like, it's unreal. Like, yeah, I mean, I've watched a lot of offensive performances in the last few years of the Eagles, especially in the first half. And, it's always rough, but, a game like that, the Steelers against the Bengals, I mean, my God, we tied the Bengals. How do you go lose to a bunch of idiots? So, by the transitive property, well, the Steelers still beat us, so, it don't matter. But yeah, so, it's, yeah, so concerning for the Steelers just going into the playoffs. I mean, yeah, they are on a slide that's not looking good. I mean, yeah, Washington really messed them up. This is a 3-game losing streak right now.
RG3 and Trace McSorley messed him.
Exactly. Yeah, almost lost to the Ravens with the backups. Lost to the football team. Lost Buffalo Bills, who were pretty good. And then loses to the Bengals. Like, this is bad for the Steelers. And I mean, like you said, we talked about it. They, did not look dominant throughout the season, and now it's finally catching up with them. And now Mike Tomlin's got to figure out a way to ship, because now all those players are questioning themselves, questioning the team. Like, oh, maybe we're not actually this good. So, those are some questions you definitely got to have answered. And you're confident going into the playoffs and not just, like, man, we did just lose to the Bengals. Now we got to play the Tennessee Titans. Like, oh, man, like, Derrick Henry's coming. Like, rough. We couldn't stop Gio Bernard. How are we going to stop Derrick Henry? Like, like they got to figure this out, right, before that first playoff game. Because, yeah, they're not going to get the bye anymore. And, now they're going to have to face a good football team, and they're going to have to figure out a way to win.
Yeah, and you said it too with the Bengals defense, and the announcers mentioned it last night, is that there were times where the Steelers offense looked very predictable. Like almost every 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 3rd and 2, they were running the ball, and there was always a linebacker or lineman that was just right there ready to tackle before the first down. So definitely need a lot of work, but also shout out to the Bengals for playing a good game and winning. And not to compare the Steelers and Ravens, but the Ravens, we play at Cincinnati week 17, and that is a game that we're going to have to win, obviously, to make the playoffs. And the way we're playing, I don't see us having a similar performance, but again, we will see in week 17. But Joe, we don't actually have a game to pick because we're going to be picking the whole week tomorrow for Christmas and the holiday season because Christmas is on a Friday. And we won't be having a Saturday show. Instead, we'll be having a Thursday show on Christmas Eve. All of our picks will be out. So any final words on week 15 or fantasy football or anything like that?
How did the pick shape out this week for us?
Oh,
sorry. What did it end up being?
Yeah, so I was doing well. I was 10-1 until the Jets game to 10-2, and then I was going into Sunday Night Football at 12-2. Picked the Giants, they lost. I picked the Steelers, obviously. So I went 12-4. Joe, you went 11-5. So you had a nice little win streak. You were 8-4 around the Jets-Rams game. So you won the last couple of games. I lost the last couple of games, but still division champ this week, 12-4 to 11-5, but I was sliding into the playoffs, and you're rising up in the playoffs.
All right.
Who knows? Yeah. But another great week from us, and
I know
the games tomorrow.
Absolutely, yeah. Just last little tidbit with fantasy, man. Like, boy, that Steelers game just screwed so many people. Like, I had one friend who, going into that game, he was up by 0.4, and he was playing Eric Ebron.
Oh.
so yeah, he ended up winning because of that. And then I had another one where I had already won my semifinal, and I won 60. We balled out this week. One of my 3 semifinals. But the other semifinal that was going on, one guy, he was up by like 6 and still had Ben Roethlisberger and Chase Claypool, and the other guy had Deontay Johnson and Eric Ebron. And that got him by 1 point. So it's and he beat the number 1 seed that way. So, I think the number 4 seed and number 5 seed, something like that, are now facing the champion. All about it. It's just crazy how, last night's game did, I'm sure, so many people in fantasy in their semifinals. Like, after that game, I was like, okay, well, he's got Ben Roethlisberger and Chase Claypool. He just needs to maintain a 6-point lead. That happened. And then at halftime, Ben Roethlisberger had -4. Like, whoa. Like, how does that happen against the Bengals? So, yeah, crazy weekend of fantasy. I'm sure there's a lot of bitter fantasy fans out there right now, my friends.
Yeah, crazy week for the semifinals in fantasy. Even a crazier week this week in week 16 with the finals. And we're going to see who wins or loses you a championship. But that'll do it for today's episode of the Flea Flicker with Joey D and Timmy B, our week 15 recap. As I said, we are returning tomorrow for our week 16 picks right ahead of Christmas because there are a couple of games on Thursday and Friday that we want to pick, as well as Saturday. I think we have 3 games on Saturday. So tune in tomorrow for all of our picks. If you do have some time on Christmas Eve, or if you are traveling on Christmas, definitely listen to us, listen to our picks, because we're going to go 16-0 this week, Joe. I can feel it. We're going to go 16-0. One of us will. I'm sure there's a game that we're going to pick the opposite on. So one of us will go 16-0. Who will it be? Tune in tomorrow and make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Joe, any final words?
God, as long as the Jets and Bengals don't find another one, then we have a chance. But I don't count on us picking either of them to win another game this season. So we'll see how it goes.
All right. Well, hopefully the Jets win because they play the Browns this weekend. I really need the Browns to lose. But guys, we will see you tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your night, and we will see you soon.